doctor gonna write? Together we will fight.
This is Hyun-Sung Park. He's in the main event on Saturday. He's Korean, not Japanese, and he's also not Rinya Nakamura, but this reporter thought that he was Nakamura, thought he was Japanese, so he was asking him how it feels to be on the same card as his countryman from Japan, Taira, but that's not his countryman, that's his opponent on Saturday, so it was a confusing exchange at Media Day.
Just talked about you're sharing this card with a fellow countryman in Tetsuro. Kaya Sakura made his debut in the organization last year. How is the growth of MMA in Japan, and how do you feel being one of the faces of the sport there?
Actually, he's not Tatsuro. He's a Park. I think you're asking him. Yeah.
Yeah, no, he's sharing the card with Park.
So he's Park. That's why I was. Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
Rudolfo Vieira will take on Tresean Gore in a middleweight contest on Saturday, but Tresean Gore missed weight by 3.5 pounds, so a bad weight miss. He will be fined 25%, but the fight will go on. 10-3 Vieira against 6-3 Gore. Gore has improving striking and good wrestling. Vieira also, striking is getting better, but he's obviously known as more of a submission threat. Can he get the fight to the ground? I don't know. It may just end up being sort of like a rudimentary striking battle between these two. Also on the card is Felipe Bunez versus Rafael Estevan, and Estevan missed weight by 4 pounds, so another bad weight miss. So after a couple weeks where there was no issues with weight misses, now we have a couple big ones. Estevan misses weight by 4 pounds. He is also fined 25%, but the fight with Bunez goes on. Estevan is a pretty big favorite in that fight. Brad Tavares picked up a win over Gerald Meerschaert a couple months back, but then it was said that he was removed from the UFC roster after 15 years with the promotion. But it ended up not being the case. He did re-sign with the organization, and he has his next fight scheduled. Tavares takes on Robert Brychek. That's September 6th, UFC Fight Night Paris. Brychek has had 4 scheduled fights in the UFC. Only one of them went through last year in February. He took on Ihor Potieria, lost the decision there, so he's been off for about a year and a half. Brad Tavares is looking for his 20th win as a middleweight in the UFC in this fight to become the winningest middleweight in UFC history. Currently, he's tied with Michael Bisping with 19 wins. Brendan Allen contends that he is the most winningest middleweight since 2020 with 12 wins since 2020, then followed by DDP and Nasser Dinamavov. So Allen says, we finally figured it out and went out last time and beat a former title challenger very decisively, talking about Marvin Vettori. Now it's time to take another big step towards the belt. De Ridder, let's see how good you are. You barely beat Whitaker in a controversial decision. Time to fight someone young and hungry. If he don't want it, then Adesanya, Whitaker, I need a former champ on my resume. De Ridder catapulted in the rankings this week to number 8 after his win over Whitaker, so now he's number 5, so he has title shot aspirations. He doesn't want to fight Brendan Allen, who's ranked 6 spots below him. Adesanya, also who's number 4, is not going to want to fight Brendan Allen. He has aspirations of rematching Sean Strickland, but Sean Strickland hasn't really said too much about that publicly, whether he's going to fight him or not. Robert Whitaker will be the closest guy to Allen in the rankings, who he wants to fight, number 7 versus number 11. Allen was coming close to title contention himself, but then he lost to Amava, followed that up with a loss to Hernandez, but rebounded a couple weeks back against Vettori. Karate Combat president talks about how someone who once threatened to off him, now asking him for opportunities, made me feel good. We've come a long way. The message exchange is kind of interesting. In 2018, the guy said, I got guns, I can get you clapped, so watch your back. And now, just the other day, he's saying, I got a homie who really wants to fight on Karate Combat, trying to get his friend into the organization. Isn't this the guy who pulled out on me last weekend in Island Fights? Apparently, it is that guy. I sprained my ankle. Didn't they tell you why? You go from threatening someone's life to not showing up to a fight for a sprained ankle. Javanis Ross on the left is apparently that fighter. Mihail Olasejic's brother, who has a 15-3 record, will be competing on Dana White's Contender Series on September 2nd, trying to get on the UFC roster with his brother, taking on Theo Haig. He has an undefeated record of 6-0. Max Holloway says he probably won't fight again this year due to an injured hand. My right hand still hurts, he says. If you have hopes of me fighting before the end of the year, probably not going to happen. I see a specialist sometime this week. Things are not looking too up for me fighting one more time this year. He's coming off a win over Dustin Poirier, and now he's number 3 in the lightweight division, so pretty impressive. Just 2 fights at 155 recently, and now he's number 3 in the division. He bounces back really quickly. He was knocked out by Poirier not that long ago, and now he's number 3 in a new weight class, and some people are talking about him potentially rematching Poirier sometime soon as well at 155. Dustin Poirier aiming to work more with ESPN now that he's retired. Looking forward to getting back on the ESPN desk and going to start focusing on that now. We'll see if he stays retired. It can be very difficult for guys to stay retired. Kind of reminiscent of that movie, The Hurt Locker, at the end. Sergeant James returns to war after a brief stint at home. He can't adjust to normal life, surrounded by everyday comforts and his family. He feels disconnected and unfulfilled. The final scene shows him walking back into another bomb disposal mission, suggesting war, with all its danger and adrenaline, is the only place he feels alive. That kind of mirrors what we often see in MMA fighters who retire only to return again. Some fighters struggle with civilian life, the loss of structure, purpose, and most of all, that rush that comes from stepping in the cage. Retirement might bring peace and safety, but for some, it also brings boredom, identity loss, or a sense that they're not done yet. Fighting becomes their addiction, not just to adrenaline, but to meaning. And just like in that movie, James couldn't replace the war zone with the grocery store aisles and fatherhood. Fighters can't always replace the octagon with commentary gigs or business ventures. Conor McGregor wasn't just talking, he did actually enter the testing pool. He was tested once this year, so he's looking to fight on the White House card next year, July 4th. Arman Sarukian says, who wants to let Ilia Topuria know he's not McGregor and he's making all the champs look bad? Champs fight the #1 contender, but this is the same guy who thinks he's the BMF. How do you say P word in Spanish? Topuria doesn't want to fight Sarukian. Some people think Sarukian should be getting the title shot. Others say, well, you haven't fought in 16 months and you kind of lost your opportunity. But from a rankings perspective, he should be fighting for the belt. But Topuria is adamant that he's not going to fight him. And the UFC ain't going to push for it because they don't give a shit if Sarukian gets a title shot or not. They don't like him since he pulled out of that fight with Makhachev. So it may go to Gaethje. His manager, Ali, has some strong influence. He may be able to make that happen. Or it could go to Paddy Pimblett. That's a big money fight. So it may be Paddy versus Topuria. And Topuria wants that fight too. DC agrees that it should be Arman Sarukian next to fight Topuria. He contends that Arman is maybe being judged too harshly based on pulling out of the Makhachev fight, and he should maybe gain some good fortune for being the backup at UFC 317 and making weight.
I'm not saying Arman Sarukian's this guy that constantly fucks up and that doesn't get to the scale or get to the fight. That happened one time. He should not be judged solely on that one time, especially after making weight and getting ready to fight as a backup fighter in the last fight. I'm just trying to give a little grace to the other side in regards to why that may be happening. At the end of the day, I agree with y'all. It should be Arman versus Ilya, and I don't think there's any question about that. But I think the problem with it is that lasting memory of him and Paddy Pimblett inside the octagon after the belt. It's going to be hard to erase, man.
The PFL World Tournament continuing tonight in Atlantic City, New Jersey. You have a couple finals in the main card, which starts at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. The main event is headlined by the welterweight final, Gina versus Storley. The co-main event is the featherweight final, Pinedo versus Habuliev.